Alright guys, so welcome to part 2 of section 2.5, solving other types of equations algebraically. We are now down to section number 4, which starts on page 2 of your notes, and it's solving radical equations. And you can read the steps right on your notes. First thing you do is you get the radical by itself on one side of the equation. You raise both sides of the equation to the power that will eliminate the radical. And you're going to see some of those when we do the example problems, what we're talking about there. And then solve for x. And beware, when solving radical equations, make sure you check your answers. You may have an answer that is extraneous. Okay? So we need to make sure that we check our answers each time. Alright, so let's take a look at number 14. On number 14, we have the square root of 2x plus 7 minus 5 equals 16. Well, remember, the first step is to get the radical by itself on both sides, so I'm going to go ahead and add 5. So I now have the square root of 2x plus 7 equaling 21. Now, how do I get rid of a square root? Well, the opposite of a square root is to square it, so I'm going to square both sides. So I'm going to raise this to the second power. And I'm going to square 21. So I'm going to end up with 2x plus 7 equals 441. All right, and now this is a very straightforward, simple equation. We subtract 7. Okay, and we get 2x equals 434. And then we divide by 2. And we get x equals 217. Now remember, what do we have to do? We have to check our answers. So let's put in our, now we're going to put our x back into our original equation. So we got the square root of 2 times 217 plus 7 minus 5 has to equal 16. All right, so 217 times 2, well, we know that's 434, so we got the square root of 434 plus 7 minus 5. Well, 434 plus 7, that is the square root of 441. What's the square root of 441? It's 21. So we got 21 minus 5. Does that equal 16? Does 16 equal 16? Indeed it does. Check. We'd be good. All right, so our answer is 217. Make sense? Okay. Let's move on to question number 15. Okay. Question number 15 gives us this problem. The square root of 2x plus 7 equals negative 16 squared. Well, I'm sorry, negative 16. We're going to square both sides, as you would think. So that will give us 2x plus 7 is equal to 256. We're going to subtract our 7. And we're going to get 2x equals 249. And then we're going to divide by 2. And we're going to get x is equal to 124 and a half. Okay, great. So now, let's see what we get here. We're going to plug this 124.5 back into the equation, so we get the square root of 2 times 124.5 plus 7. That's supposed to be equal to negative 16. Now guys, I'm hoping that you're thinking right now, wait a minute, how do I get a square root equal to a negative number? You don't. So this might actually be an extraneous solution. We have 249 plus 7 is supposed to equal negative 16. That gives us 256. The square root equals negative 16. 16 does not equal negative 16. So this solution, this is extraneous. There is no solution to this problem. Yeah, that happens every once in a while. Yep, you gotta do what you gotta do, right? All right, so let's move on and let's take a look at the very next one, number 16. Number 16, we get the cube root of 3x minus 1 plus 12 is equal to 14. Again, we're going to isolate that root by itself, so we're going to subtract 12 from both sides. And we get the cube root of 3x minus 1 is equal to 2. Now, how do we get rid of a cube root? Well, we have to raise it to the third power. So we're going to have to raise 2 to the third power. So that gives us the cube root, or that gives us, well, that, goodness gracious. So that gets rid of that radical for us. So we have 3x minus 1 equals 2 to the third power. Well, that's simply 8. Now this becomes rather easy to solve. We get 3x equals 9, and we get x equals 3. And we must check our answer. So let's plug it in. We get the cube root of 3 times 3 minus 1 plus 12 has to equal 14. So we have the cube root of 9 minus 1 plus 12. So that gives us the cube root of 8, which happens to be 2. Does 2 plus 12 equal 14? Does 14 equal 14? Yep, we are good to go. All right, so hopefully that will put your mind at ease about the radical problems. Okay, we're going to do a couple more of these, just so that you can feel a little bit more comfortable. There's not going to be a lot of these for extra left over for practice. Okay. So let's move on to number 18. Question number 18 gives us the square root of 2x plus 7 equal to the square root of 5x minus 2. Now, I saw some of you actually use this process in some of your homework problems. Square both sides. You get 2x plus 7 equals 5x minus 2. And then you just solve it like you normally would. Subtract 2x. You get 7 equals 3x minus 2. Add 2. 9 equals 3x. Divide by 3. 3 equals x. Okay. And we should actually check our answer, so we can do this pretty quickly. What is the square root of 6 plus 7? Well, that's simply the square root of 13. And does that equal the square root of 15 minus 2? Does the square root of 13 equal the square root of 13? Indeed it does. Guys, don't worry about trying to simplify this. I mean, if you get the same radical, you know it's the same answer. So, don't be all gung-ho and trying to figure all this out, okay? You don't have to give me decimal answers. That's basically what I'm trying to say. All right, let's take a look at the next one, number 19. We have the square root of 2x plus 7 And we have to subtract x, and that has to equal 2. All right, the first thing we're going to do, of course, is to add x to both sides. So we get the square root of 2x plus 7 is equal to x plus 2. So now we're going to square both of these. Okay, and we get the 2x plus 7. Now, ladies and gentlemen, again, this whole thing is getting squared. So this is the same as saying x plus 2 times x plus 2. Please do not tell me it's just x squared plus 4, because I will be angry. X squared plus 4x plus 4. Okay, so now what do? Well, we subtract our 2x, and we subtract our 7, and we get 0 equals x squared plus 2x minus 3. Well, now we get to do what we've done in the past. We've got to factor this. So I get x plus 3, x minus 1. Hopefully this factoring stuff is coming easy to you. And then we get x equals negative 3 and x equals 1. Now, what do we have to make sure that we do? We have to make sure that we check our answers. Okay? So I'm going to erase this part because you've seen it, and that gives me a little bit more room. Now, let's plug in negative 3. We've got the square root of 2 times negative 3 plus 7 minus negative 3, and that's supposed to equal to 2. All right, 2 times negative 3, that's negative 6 plus 7. And this minus negative 3, I hope you all realize that that's plus 3. So negative 6 plus 7, so that's the square root of 1 plus 3. Well, 1 plus 3, ladies and gentlemen, is not equal to 2, is it? So is negative 3 an answer? No. It is an extraneous answer. Let's plug in 1 really quick. We get the square root of 2 plus 7 minus 1 equals 2. Well, the square root of 9 is 3. 3 minus 1 equals 2. Does 2 equal 2? Indeed. So x does indeed equal 1. So please, ladies and gentlemen, as I've stated a couple of times, you've got to do your checks. If you're not doing your checks and you come up with an extraneous answer and you don't get rid of it, guess what? You don't get full credit for the problem. Actually, you lose a lot of credit on the problem. Okay? All right, let's move on to number 20. Okay, so we have x minus the square root of x minus 1 equals 7. Now, let's go ahead and get rid of the x. All right, so I'm going to have negative the square root of x minus 1 equals 7 minus x. I don't like this, so I'm going to take it and divide everything by negative 1. So I now have the square root of x minus 1 is equal to negative 7 plus x. That's much better. Or I can even rewrite it as square root of x minus 1 is equal to x minus 7. Square both of these and get x minus 1 is equal to, now I'm not going to write it out, but you guys should know, x squared minus 14x plus 49. Alright, so we're going to subtract x. We're going to add 1. So I'm going to subtract x, add 1, add 0, equals x squared minus 15x plus 50. Now, can anybody think of factors of 50 that multiply to get 50 and adds to get negative 15? I can. That's x minus 10 times x minus 5. So x would equal to 10, and x is equal to 5. But again, we have to do what? We still have to make sure that we plug them back in. So I have 10 minus the square root of 9 equals 7. So 10 minus 3 equals 7. Check. Now does 5 minus the square root of 4 equal 7? Well, does 5 minus 2 equal 7? 3 does not equal 7, so that is not an answer. So x equals 5 is an extraneous answer, and the only answer that is correct is 10. Hanging in there, guys and gals? I'm sure you are. You'll be happy to know that we're going to be skipping section 5, so you don't have to worry about those. But we will move on into section 6. Okay. All right. So I'm going to leave number 21 for you guys. So that leaves you in this section questions number 17 and 21 for practice. Okay. As I said, we're going to skip section 5, so we're going to skip 22 through 25. You don't have to worry about those at all. And we're going to go into the last section of today's notes, which is solving equations with fractions. Yes, I know. I hear it now. Groan, why fractions, Mr. Drummond? I hate fractions. You guys will be okay. You'll live. All right. So, the first problem that shows up in solving equations with fractions is just realized I have two different sets of notes here. So what you're not seeing in section 5, yeah, that's okay. We are going to do where it says section 6, so you don't even see a section 5. Okay. So section 6, we have x plus 8, or x over 8, plus 3 over 8, equals 1 over 2x. All right, guys, what is the least common multiple here? Well, I've got 2x and I've got 8. 2 does go into 8, so that's nice to know. So my least common multiple is going to be 8x. So I'm going to multiply everything by 8x. So 8 goes in 8x, so that gives me an x. So x times x is x squared. That gives me an x again, so that's plus 3x. Now this 2 goes into 8, that gives me 4. 4 times 1 is 4, and the x's disappear. So x squared plus 3x equals 4. So I'm going to subtract my 4. I'm going to get x squared plus 3x minus 4 now equals 0. Factor this. This is an easy factor, guys. X plus 4, x minus 1 equals 0. X equals negative 4. X equals 1. Okay. Now, please make sure you check your answers. Let's do 1/8 plus 3/8. That's 4/8. That's the same thing as 1/2. Well, if I have a 1 here, that's 1/2. 1/2 equals 1/2, so that's good. Now let's plug in the negative 4. Negative 4 over 8 plus 3 over 8 equals 1 over 2 times negative 4. So this is negative 4 plus 3/8, that's negative 1/8. Does that equal 1 over negative 8? Yes, because I can move that up there, and that is good. So both of these answers are correct. I know I'm moving fast through this one, but guys, you've done fractions before, and you've got to be able to do them. So stick with it, get that least common multiple, and everything else is good. All right, so let's step it up a little bit. Let's take a look at number 23. We have 2 over x equals 3 over x minus 2 minus 1. Guys, the least common multiple here is not x minus 2. It is x times x minus 2. You can't just say that this x and this x are the same. They are not. Okay. So what happens when I multiply this? Well, the x's will cancel. I get 2 times x minus 2. So I get this. Now the x minus 2's cancel, and I get 3 times x. And I get 1 times that whole thing, so I get x times x minus 2. So let's go ahead and do everything out. We have 2x minus 4 equals 3x. Now, we've got negative 1x times x, which is negative x squared. Negative 1x times negative 2, which is plus 2x. Okay. Now, let's combine our like terms. I've got 2x minus 4 equals 5x minus x squared. Now guys, I don't care how you get your how you move things around, but I don't like having a leading negative exponent, so I'm going to add x squared and I'm going to subtract 5x. So I'm going to have x squared minus 3x minus 4 now equals 0. And now we have x minus 4 times x plus 1 equals 0, which gives us x equals 4, x equals negative 1. Okay. Let's plug it in. 2 over 4 equals 3 over 4 minus 2 minus 1. So I get 1/2 equals 3/2 minus 1. And well, hopefully all of you see that 1/2 does indeed equal 1/2. Now if I plug in negative 1, 2 divided by negative 1 is negative 2. And I get 3 over negative 1 minus 2 minus 1. So I get negative 2 equals, what is 3 divided by negative 3? Well, 3 divided by negative 3 is 3. What am I thinking here? Yeah. 3 minus 1. Does negative 2 equal 2? No, this is negative 3. So right, so what do we end up with? We end up with just 4 working. Let me rework that part. Let me rework this this solution up here because I want to make sure. Because I got distracted. That's what happens when you're doing these videos at home. All right, we get x equals negative 1, so I got 2. Oops. 2. What are you doing? Two over negative 1. That's okay. Is equal to 3 over negative 1 minus 2 minus 1. 2 over negative 1 is still negative 2. Okay, this becomes 3 over negative 3 minus 1. So I get negative 2 equals negative 1 minus 1. There we go. So I get negative 2 does indeed equal negative 2. So negative 1 is a solution. Every once in a while, I do dumb things. 3 divided by 3 is 3. See y'all rubbing off on me. Okay. If you hear my cat purring, that's my distraction. All right, so let's go ahead and erase this. See if I can get this back up the way I want it. There we go. All right, let's move on to question number 24. Okay, I've got 6 over x minus 9 over x minus 1 equals 1/4. Right. So again, we have x times x minus 1 as our least common multiple. So x disappears, so I have 6 times x minus 1 minus 9x equals and I forgot the 4, because the 4 is part of it too. So then I have, instead of a 6 over here, I have the 6 times 4, which is 24. And instead of a 9 over here, I have 9 times 4, which is 36. And then I just have x times x minus 1 on the right-hand side. So this gives me 24x minus 24 minus 36x equals x squared minus x. So let's combine our like terms over here. I've got negative 12x minus 24 equals x squared minus x. We'll move everything from the left over, so I'm going to end up with adding 12x and adding 24 plus 12x plus 24. So that gives me 0 equals x squared plus 11x plus 24. And this is one of my favorite factorings because everybody seems to forget that 8 times 3 equals 24. And so that gives me that x can be negative 8 and x can be negative 3. All right, so what do we need to do? We need to make sure. Okay, what do we know that x can't equal, by the way? We're dividing by x's down here. We know that x cannot equal 0 and x cannot equal 1. So we think it's going to be negative 8 and negative 3. Let's just double check. 6 over negative 8 minus 9 over negative 8 minus 1 should equal 1/4. Okay, well, this is negative 3 over 4 minus 9 over negative 9, or negative 3 over 4 plus 1 should equal 1/4. Does 1/4 equal 1/4? Yep. So that's good. All right, so we still need to check negative 3. Okay. So to plug in negative 3, I get 6 over negative 3 minus 9 over negative 3 minus 1, again, should equal 1/4. So this is negative 2 minus, this is 9 over negative 4. That should equal 1/4 still. So I've got negative 2 minus negative 2 and 1/4 should be 1/4. Well, 1/4 does indeed equal 1/4. Okay. One more problem, guys. We're going to do one more, and that'll be end of this lesson. I know this lesson is a little bit longer, but again, all you got to do is watch it. So it's not like you're doing any extra problems today, unless you choose to. So we've got 5 over x squared plus x minus 6 minus 1 is equal to 1 over x minus 2. All right, guys, factor this puppy. Whenever you see a trinomial like this, factor it. So you have 5 over x plus 3 times x minus 2 minus 1 equals 1 over x minus 2. Oh, look, I have the x minus 2 there. We know that x cannot equal negative 3 and x cannot equal 2. We know that. So, our least common multiple is going to be the x plus 3 times x minus 2. So we're going to multiply everything here by x plus 3 and x minus 2. All right, by doing that, that leaves me with just 5 from the first term minus, okay, we know what x plus 3 and x minus 2 is. We just figured that out, and that's multiplied by 1. So we're going to have minus x squared plus x minus 6 equals, now the x minus 2's cancel out, and I have 1 times x plus 3, which is x plus 3. So again, let's distribute our negative. x5 minus x squared minus x plus 6 is equal to x plus 3. Again, I don't like this, so I'm going to add my like terms. I've got negative x squared minus x plus 11 equals x plus 3. I'm going to add x to both sides. I'm going to add x squared to both sides. I'm going to subtract 11. So I'm going to plus x minus 11, and then minus x squared, or plus x squared. So I've got x squared plus 2x minus 8 equal to 0. So that gives me x what are we doing here? Okay, so that gives me x plus 4 times x minus 2 equals 0. So in that case, I get x equals negative 4, and I get x equals 2. But what did we say up here? X cannot equal 2, so that's gone. So the only possible answer I have is negative 4. And I'm going to leave that check up to you just to prove that negative 4 does indeed make this problem true. Alright guys, that's it for today. I know it's a long video. You're going to have some problems to do for tomorrow. And then Friday we're going to have, I'm going to give you a little bit of a quiz on this section and last week's section. So hopefully you're all up to speed. Alright guys, have a great day.